The cameras were already running, the fences were watched, the cattle were tracked. Researchers carried night vision equipment, radiation detectors, and instruments designed to notice changes too small for the human body to feel. And still, the strangest events seemed to happen in exactly the wrong place. A light appeared beyond the cameras. An animal vanished during a gap in observation. Equipment failed when pointed toward a particular area. Witnesses described the same unsettling sensation. Whatever was happening on this ranch did not merely hide from them. It seemed to know where they were looking. For decades, that idea has haunted Skinwalker Ranch. But if something really was watching the investigators, the most important clue may not be what they saw. It may be when they failed to see. Today, Skinwalker Ranch is one of the most famous paranormal locations in the United States. It is a roughly 500-acre property in Utah's Uinta Basin, close to the Uinta and Ouray Reservation. The ranch has been associated with unidentified lights, unusual animals, cattle deaths, equipment failures, supposed portals, and objects moving through the sky. But the familiar version combines several different stories. The Navajo Skinwalker is traditionally understood not as a species of monster, but as a human practitioner of harmful witchcraft. The ranch's modern name borrowed that powerful image, yet the property is not the documented birthplace of the Navajo tradition. Its connection to that belief is indirect, and was popularized after reports about the ranch had already begun attracting attention. In fact, the earliest widely circulated stories did not describe a neat mythology at all. They described confusion. The ranch was not famous because witnesses consistently saw one creature. It became famous because they claimed to encounter completely different categories of impossible events in the same place. That would become its defining feature. In 1994, Terry and Gwen Sherman purchased the property, which had previously belonged to Kenneth and Edith Myers for decades. The Shermans intended to raise cattle. According to the accounts they later gave reporters, they instead experienced a growing series of disturbances. They described unusually large animals that behaved without normal fear. Strange lights appeared over the property. Objects allegedly moved or disappeared. Some cattle were found dead or injured under circumstances the family considered inexplicable. One of the best-known stories involved an enormous wolf-like animal that reportedly approached the family soon after they arrived. Terry Sherman claimed he shot it several times at close range. The animal supposedly remained standing and eventually walked away. There is no surviving physical specimen proving that this creature was anything unknown to science. The episode comes to us through testimony, and later retellings vary in detail. That distinction matters. The Sherman story was not built from laboratory results. It was built from accumulated experiences, reported by frightened people trying to understand why their new home no longer felt predictable. In June 1996, the family's claims reached a much larger audience through a report in the Deseret News. The ranch was soon purchased by businessman Robert Bigelow, founder of the National Institute for Discovery Science, or NIDS. The witnesses were about to be replaced by investigators, and that was when the mystery changed. Bigelow's team attempted to turn the property into a monitored research site. Researchers installed cameras, observed livestock, interviewed witnesses, examined reported cattle injuries, and waited for the ranch to produce something measurable. But the phenomenon described in later accounts seemed almost designed to frustrate them. Events were dramatic when no instrument was correctly positioned. When cameras were moved, activity reportedly shifted elsewhere. Equipment malfunctioned. Witnesses claimed to see objects or lights that left little usable evidence behind. One frequently repeated account describes surveillance cameras mounted high on poles. When equipment failed, investigators allegedly found wiring damaged in a way they could not easily explain, while another camera that should have recorded the incident captured nothing useful. Taken literally, stories like this suggest intelligence. Something understood surveillance. Something could approach equipment without being recorded. Something knew the investigators' blind spots. But there is another possibility. A ranch covered by imperfect cameras still contains enormous areas outside their fields of view. Cables fail. Animals interfere with equipment. Recordings miss brief events. And when hundreds of ordinary hours are forgotten while one unexplained failure is remembered, randomness can begin to look deliberate. The same evidence can therefore produce two completely different stories. Either the investigators were studying the ranch, or the ranch was studying them. If Skinwalker Ranch contained one physical creature, investigators could search for tracks, hair, droppings, feeding patterns, or a stable habitat. If it produced a recurring aircraft, they could compare flight paths, radar returns, photographs, and astronomical conditions. But the ranch refused to remain inside one category. Reports included glowing orbs, dark aerial objects, unusually large animals, cattle injuries, poltergeist-like disturbances, disembodied voices, strange shadows, and physical sensations. This variety made the story difficult to test, but extraordinarily difficult to kill. An explanation for one event did not explain the next. A misidentified aircraft could account for a light in the sky, but not a missing object inside a house. Predation might explain injured cattle, but not an apparent equipment failure. Human perception could explain a distant animal, but not every story attributed to the property. The mystery survived by changing shape, and that may be why the word skinwalker became so effective. Not because a traditional Navajo skinwalker had been documented there, but because the modern ranch legend itself behaved like a shapeshifter. Whenever one explanation approached, the story became something else. Eventually, reports connected to the ranch moved beyond the property line. Some investigators and visitors claimed that unusual experiences followed them home. These accounts became known as the hitchhiker effect. People described strange lights, shadowy figures, disturbing dreams, unexplained sounds, or anomalous events witnessed by members of their families. Again, these are reported experiences, not proof of a contagious paranormal force. No accepted scientific study has established that exposure to the ranch causes supernatural events elsewhere. But narratively, the hitchhiker effect changed everything. A haunted location can be escaped. A creature belongs to a territory. An unidentified object can fly away. But an observer that learns who has seen it and then follows that person home cannot be contained by a fence. This was no longer simply a story about something hiding on a ranch. It was a story about attention itself becoming dangerous. And once that idea enters an investigation, almost any later coincidence can feel connected. A light outside a bedroom window is no longer just a light. A nightmare is no longer just a nightmare. An electronic failure is no longer random. The ranch has taught the witness to watch. The legend gained another layer when Bigelow's organization became connected to government-funded investigations of unusual aerospace reports. That connection is real, but it is frequently exaggerated. Government interest does not prove that officials confirmed portals, monsters, or extraterrestrial technology at Skinwalker Ranch. It proves that people inside government were willing to investigate unusual claims and potential aerospace threats. The Pentagon's All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office later reviewed the history of American government involvement in UAP investigations. Its 2024 historical report stated that it found no verifiable evidence that the U.S. government or private companies possessed extraterrestrial technology. It also discussed a proposed Department of Homeland Security program called Kona Blue, connected to people who believed paranormal activity might be related to advanced technology. The proposal was never approved. That does not resolve every event at the ranch. It does, however, expose a common mistake: confusing investigation with confirmation. Scientists study diseases they have not explained. Intelligence agencies investigate reports that may prove false. Governments examine unlikely possibilities because overlooking one genuine threat can be costly. A file means somebody asked a question. It does not mean they found the answer believers hoped for. There are several ways to interpret Skinwalker Ranch. The supernatural explanation argues that the diversity is the point. The ranch may be a place where different phenomena enter our reality, or where an intelligence generates experiences tailored to the observer. A technological interpretation proposes advanced aircraft, surveillance systems, directed energy, or other human technology mistaken for something paranormal. Environmental explanations consider unusual atmospheric conditions, astronomical objects, wildlife, local geology, radio interference, and the difficulty of judging distance in a dark, open landscape. Psychological explanations do not require witnesses to be dishonest. Human perception is reconstructive. Expectation changes what people notice. Fear increases vigilance. Memory reorganizes uncertain events into stories with causes and intentions. Then there is the social explanation. Once a location becomes famous for anomalies, Every ambiguous event arrives with a ready-made meaning. Witnesses compare experiences. Later stories absorb details from earlier ones. Television turns uncertainty into episodes with beginnings and cliffhangers. None of this proves that every witness was mistaken, but it shows why the ranch can continue generating mysteries even without a single controlling cause. The ranch may be a convergence point, not necessarily for portals or creatures, but for landscape, folklore, technology, expectation, commerce, genuine uncertainty, and the human need to connect scattered events. Return to the cameras. Researchers believe the most suspicious pattern was that activity happened beyond their instruments. The phenomenon appeared to anticipate observation. But that pattern contains a hidden trap. If a camera captures a clear, ordinary cause, the event stops being part of the mystery. A coyote becomes a coyote. A plane becomes a plane. A broken cable becomes damaged equipment. Only the incidents that remain outside observation survive as Skinwalker Ranch stories. That means the archive naturally selects for events that seem to evade the archive. The mystery appears intelligent because all the unintelligent explanations are removed whenever evidence becomes good enough to identify them. This does not prove that nothing unusual happened. It means the sensation of being watched may emerge from the very method used to investigate it. The observers remembered the moments when their systems failed, because successful observation often destroyed the mystery instead of confirming it. The ranch did not need to understand the cameras. The legend only needed the cameras to miss. Skinwalker Ranch remains compelling because it sits at the boundary between experience and evidence. People can sincerely encounter something they cannot explain. Investigators can collect data without obtaining a conclusion. A government can examine a claim without validating it. And when uncertainty lasts long enough, the absence of an answer begins to feel like evidence of intention. Perhaps something at Skinwalker Ranch really was watching them. Or perhaps after years of cameras, sensors, stories, and sleepless nights, the most important transformation was simpler. The investigators came to watch the ranch and slowly became unable to stop watching.